Move receipt of the apology.
Is your phone off, Mr. Sayers?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, good.
$10. Rates reduction.
So would someone move the apologies for Denise Lee being late and John Walker? Denise away. Okay.
Second.
Moved, seconded. It's Richard. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any declarations of interest? None.
Interested in everything.
Someone could confirm the minutes of the last meeting, please.
I move.
Moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Cashmore. All those in favour?
Aye.
There are no petitions. Public input, there is none. And I apologise, Penny, but it was short of notice, so we can't
No,
accept
Ross,
that today.
I asked you to reconsider. I have not had a reply to that email.
Yep, and I don't know what
Section
might be.
7.74, you have the discretion if it's a matter of urgent or public interest, and that was the application that I made. The exceptional circumstances are the unprecedented bribery and corruption verdict in the Auckland High Court on the 9th, and I really hope that you're not going to turn a blind eye to that which helps
Right,
cause corrupt
there is the
practice.
governing body meeting on Thursday. I suggest you attempt to get to speak to that meeting, which is on Thursday. Okay. Local board input, there is none. Extraordinary business, there is none. As far as we know, there's no notices of motion. So we'll go straight to the disposals report, and it's Letitia and Andrew, isn't it? Anthony, yep. Welcome. Welcome, Andrew, because I believe you are taking over from Letitia, who's Anthony last time, is it? Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Anthony has recently stepped into the Senior Advisor role at Panuku Development Auckland. Just for the next couple of months, where there's properties that I've actually run through the rationalisation process, I'll continue to come along because I've got the background information and history, and in time you will see a lot more of Anthony and a lot less of me.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, we have two properties that we are presenting today. The first property is located at 150 Mount Wellington Highway and comprises 28 units held in individual freehold strata title. The property was acquired for amity but is no longer required for this purpose. There are weather tightness issues at 27 of 28 of the dwellings located at this property. External consultants have tested the dwellings and found that they are safe for habitation, and a notice has also been lodged on the limb by Auckland Council's Weather Tightness and Compliance team. We've undertaken our standard consultation process for these properties. Now, I understand that councillors were provided with information about our standard consultation process as part of your briefing pack from Panuku, but I'm also happy to answer any questions on that. Very briefly though, we did a consultation with all of council and all CCOs, relevant iwi authorities and the Mangakiki Tamaki local board. No alternative service uses were identified for the site, and the feedback received has been supportive of the proposed divestment. Now, given the current housing shortage in Auckland, we at Panuku believe it's important to dispose of the site in a manner that ensures the 28 dwellings remain as housing stock and are remediated ideally as part of that process. Should the Finance and Performance Committee approve the divestment of this property, we would seek to sell the entire property on an as-is, where-is basis, giving the new owner the benefit of the existing cash flow from the existing tenants and the opportunity to remediate the building over time. The second property presented is 1/16 Serona Avenue in New Lynn. It's a vacant landlocked parcel of land that comprises 957 square metres. It was acquired for remedial works, and these works have been completed. Again, we've undertaken our standard consultation process, which has included consultation with all council departments and CCOs, iwi authorities and the Waitakere Rangers local board, and again no alternative service uses have been identified, and the feedback received has been supportive of the proposed divestment. Happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Good, Mr. Chairman. Just in regards to paragraph 16 and developing and understanding what could amount to a matter of significant cultural relevance. Is it, who's actually doing that? It says Māori and Strategy Relations Team, but who,
Yes, we work very closely, our engagement team and ourselves work very closely with the new unit that was formerly Te Waka Angamoa to understand any issues of potential cultural significance, and also with the IMSB.
so is, through you, Mr. Chairman, is Mana Whenua actually engaged in that process? So is it a rating situation that you're creating or something, or merit?
It's not a rating situation as such. It's each case is assessed on its merit. We have monthly forums at Panuku with iwi, and we work through any potential issues there.
Just one more question. It talks about possible outcomes include commemoration or physical acknowledgement in forms of plaque. Is there another step where you might not actually do dispose of it because of its significance?
Yes, in saying that, if there were issues of significance, it would probably never get to the governing body or to this forum. When we do research on properties, so when properties are transferred to us, we undertake a thorough research process into the history of the property, going all the way back to the Land Acts of the 1800s to ascertain if there's any issues whatsoever with the property. So it would be identified very early on, ideally, and we'd work through those issues. It hasn't happened to date, to my awareness, but we still do that background research.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the property in Mount Wellington was acquired under the Public Works Act for the Amity project?
Through the Chair, yes, it was acquired in accordance with the Public Works Act for the Amity project. However, my understanding is all the former owners signed deeds of waiver saying the property no longer had to be offered back to them.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the leadership. It's on the Mount Wellington one. Panuku have looked at 3 of the units that have found some weather ingress risks there. There are 28 units and the capital value is 13.2 as of 14. But the big change is the unitary plan provision, which has gone to mixed housing suburban. So what is the value of the land compared with the buildings, and what consideration has Panuku given to it being a clean slate development? If the extent of the weather ingress issues, and these can really get away on you quickly, would require possible demolition, you are back to land value, which may have been increased considerably with the landing of the unitary plan. So what consideration has Panuku given to it being the developer on a clean slate, mixed housing, suburban land asset?
Through the Chair, consideration was given to if we should take on such development work ourselves. Now, we took advice from the CCO monitoring unit and ascertained that that is outside of our remit. There were also concerns that if we took on a project such as this and costs overran or there were unexpected expenses, that the cost would be borne by the ratepayers, which we felt was an unnecessary risk. So while this isn't an ideal situation, we feel disposing of it in a manner which ensures it remains as housing stock and actually keeps those tenants in place for as long as possible is the ideal solution in what are quite complex circumstances.
And so just one supplementary, just to check this off, is it's beyond your remit because it's not identified as an area that you would work on because it's not transform or unlock. You don't have remit outside of that strategic direction on individual sites.
Through the Chair, it's outside of our remit because Panuku doesn't undertake actual development work ourselves. We enable third parties to undertake development work and achieve certain outcomes. So we have not been set up to do the actual building and construction work.
Oh, sorry, look, I take that for granted. Sorry, I'm not assuming you are the developer. I'm assuming you are the facilitator of development and you pick up, you know, the gain. So that's my core questions. Sorry, Chair, to not be clear on that. So is that not been a consideration, a clear slate Panuku working with a developer as opposed to being a developer?
Yes, through the Chair, that was considered and we felt that a number of options were explored, and we've talked to people in the development community. Obviously, we haven't been able to enter into any agreements at this stage, but actually keeping the tenants in place and having the opportunity for that cash flow to continue for anyone who acquired the property was seen as being a more attractive option. And there's the added benefit of it keeps the tenants in place for a longer period of time.
Yeah. Well, we don't really know the extent of the weather ingress, and weather ingress can mean there really is forced vacation because the works are quite considerable. I'll just have to take the report information and support it, Mr. Chair. But I think in the future, I think we should explore those options harder. And I know there is a directive speaking to the motion. I think you've moved it. I'll take it. I'll second it.
Before we do that, just note A, B and C have been added, but A is important to reflect on.
Yeah, I think in the future, I'd probably like to see more of a clean slate approach. I'm not suggesting that we get into the development game, but I think we could get into better deliverable outcomes on a land asset which is quite considerable and will take a lot more than 28 units.
Yes. Yes, through the Chair, thank you for that. I will note that with our development team. And again, just noting this was a very complex property with a variety of issues, and we have tried to be mindful of the tenants who are in place there, the housing issues in Auckland, and have come up, conversations that we've had with the development community about this property, and come up with what has been a potential solution to some quite complex problems and present them to you. But note your feedback and thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Tisha, so there's no, as you said, you've made sure that the housing tenancies remain in place. Sorry. And I don't know, there's no restriction on that, so it could well be developed further down the track if the new owner so desired.
Yes, through the Chair, my understanding of conversations with the development community is that there is support for keeping some of the tenants in place while some of the units are remediated, and doing it in a rolling manner so that there's continued cash flow. And I imagine if you're taking on a project like this, that would be quite attractive to actually have that continuing cash flow.
Yeah, I was just talking more about completely redeveloping the site or partial redevelopment in line with Councillor Darby's comments. Still a possibility.
Yes, it's a possibility. The housing platforms are in place. There's all the services there. So the ideal is that it remains as housing.
Thank you.
Okay, just before I put it,
You mentioned that you've done quite extensive background work on the properties. I'm just wondering, what was the rationale behind the iwi feedback? You said on the first property that you'd been in contact with 14 iwi, and on the second 7. Why is that? Why was it limited to that?
Yes, through the Chair, we contact the iwi groups who are relevant to the property area, the location.
So you determined who was relevant?
We work with the Māori Strategy and Relations team in Council and the IMSB to determine the relevant groups to contact.
just before I put this, we'll flash up any changes of recommendations, because Councillor Simpson and myself have made some changes as of last night. They're just tightening things, so there's nothing major in any of them, but so we just added these. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll put these. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, councillors.
Right, we then have CCOs, and we welcome Auckland Transport. Lester and David.
That's the way it should be.
And
Auckland Transport first.
What happened to ACIL? First orders been changed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's the order now?
Welcome, Richard, as well. And sorry, could you introduce your other?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I'm here today, Lester Levy, Chairman, Auckland Transport, David Warburton, Chief Executive, Richard Morris, Chief Finance Officer, and we've also brought today Mark Lambert, who heads up our public transport, because obviously that's an area there's a lot of development and a lot of interest in.
I just remind members that, sorry, councillors, that basically it's a 20-minute slot. It can be extended a little bit, but we've only really got that amount of time. And I'll just point out that the Auckland Transport Board meeting has actually been suspended while they come to this meeting.
Thank you. If I may just make a brief introduction. So in the very recent past, in the public transport area, we've just had the introduction of simpler fares, or integrated fares as it's more commonly known. We've had the successful introduction of the double-deckers. We are now into the process of introduction of the new network, and that is a pretty critical area. I'm not 100% certain that most people realise this is one of the most significant public transport changes in many decades. And it's a multi-phased approach over a period of years. And Mark will just touch on some of the earliest results that we're seeing in the south, where we've commenced the implementation of the new network.